Everything we know, from people and ants to stars and galaxies to quarks and atoms, the entire universe, might just be a simulation running inside a supercomputer inside an even bigger universe. Ancient philosophers said that the universe is a dream that we're waiting to wake up from. In this dream world of the imagination, anything is possible. All cultural items, from the dreams of our rodent-like ancestors, to books, to television shows, are merely permutations of the reality we think we live in. Today's age of computers and video games places simulations at the center of our cultural consciousness. A select group of us perform simulations for fun and profit, and we call them games, role-playing and otherwise. We live to run simulations. Join us on the Simulationist podcast as we explore our culture of simulations.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Simulationist podcast. This is the 133rd iteration of the show, recorded on the 22nd of March, 2014.
2015. You're still doing it, huh? A quarter of the way into the year.
Wow. Okay.
See, I told you, you got to start doing 2016. That way, when it finally rolls around, you are on top of that ball.
Yeah, we should just... Instead of counting we should have like 2-year cycles, like 24-month cycles. That might help.
I don't know. Then you have to come up with the whole thing. I mean, it's already bad enough with the current calendar system where October 8th month is the 10th in the year.
Yeah, that's true.
If you're going to do a 24-month, then you're going to, well, I mean, you can get a chance to put everything back in the right order. You can move July and August somewhere down the line.
Yeah.
Actually, that might not be bad. Maybe you just do like the first 12 months, basically, like Roman numeral stuff, and then you find some really great characters throughout history to name the rest of the months after.
Yeah, sure.
So you get your July and your August, and who's a great character? Who's someone you respect throughout history, Josh?
I don't know. Napoleon.
Oh, because I was going to go with like Jesus Timber.
Jesus Timber, I like it.
It would be likely the 2nd March sort of thing, because you want to associate him with like the Easter sort of situation again.
Maybe what you want is some like solar system, so Copernicus and Galileo.
Ooh, okay, I can dig that. Okay, yeah, so we got an interesting plan then for making a 24-month system going on here.
Yeah.
But then you realize it's going to be, after the 24 months, it's going to be even harder to change up the next year because you've been at it for 24 months on the 1 year, so it's pretty heavily ingrained.
Well, we'll have to put that on the side burner for now.
Okay, here's the second option for you. You get one of those like fake gag pens that shocks you whenever you try to click it. And then you tell yourself 2014, and then you shock yourself. And then you do 2014, and then you shock yourself until you classically condition yourself away from last year.
I don't know if it's that important to me to know what year it is.
Okay, I was just making sure, because, I mean, that'd be technically cheaper than switching to a 24-month calendar system and getting everyone else to agree to it, and it'd probably be a little quicker, too, so...
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
So who are you, buddy?
Oh, we didn't introduce ourselves.
No,
I am Josh Trelevin, as always, and with me, as always, on the other side of the table, the other
Philosopher King, Ryan Kirkby.
That's Ryan Kirkby. Hey, how are you doing, Ryan?
I'm doing pretty darn decent, all things considered. I got some caffeine in my system and a belly full of pizza.
Good, very good.
And really, I don't care what Conan says. There's very few things better in life than, a full belly, some caffeine in your system, and knowing all your loved ones are safe and happy somewhere. I don't have to hear the lamentation of anybody's women.
Oh, no lamentation. That is good.
Although there is some stuff I wouldn't mind, getting preserved for photos. So I wouldn't mind hearing the lamination of some women.
The lamination.
Yes.
Or the lamb emanation. I don't know. I'm trying to.
My wife does make a pretty nice lamb, so I wouldn't mind her doing some lamination there.
The lamb aromanation.
Oh yes, the spices she cooks with are just amazing. The entire home is just suffused with that for the rest of the night. It's great.
Yeah, indeed. So we should get into the first part of the show.
I think we can start with a little bit of news that seems a little interesting.
News. Oh yeah.
Okay, so Cern, the people that are running the Large Hadron Collider, they've got it back up and running. They retooled it and they increased the power. They basically did a tune-up on it, I suppose, is the best way to describe it.
Cern is starting up again,
and
more data. Yay!
Well, and that's the thing is they're doing a test that if done, one way, and it proves out, like, 'cause they're doing a test to see how things work. And if it works out one way, they will effectively ping an alternate universe. Which is
kind of neat.
This isn't like
I hadn't heard that before.
If the test goes one way, if the results show it, going in this one, there's one of several options. But this is not like an alternative universe, where there's like, oh, it's an alternate you. Everyone's got like goatees. It's the evil mirror. No, it's not like that. This is going to be like an alternate reality whereby even like the physical constants and the mathematical constants that underpin reality might not be the same. And given that we need some of these to be in just the right little area, otherwise all of reality doesn't build up the way it does, means that we could just be kind of pinging a dead universe. It kind of like be dialing like an empty apartment somewhere.
Okay.
There's just no one there to pick up, which is kind of sad, but that only proves that we really got to be careful with this reality.
Well, I get the picture of like pinging another universe and, I don't know, sending a signal, and it turns out the other universe is exactly the same as ours, so the signals, I don't know, hit each other, either bounce off or cancel each other out, something like that. Trust me, I'm not going to be reading into this high level physics stuff. I might be able to convince my brother to give it a quick read, but I think it'd even be like so deep compared to his knowledge base. It's basically like deep sea diving. Well, and it's also it's the same sort of deal. They talk about, we'll be creating mini black holes. Well, and people are like, oh no, black holes still swallow the Earth. Well, no, like when a black hole is that small, it just basically evaporates immediately.
And according to some of the theories, like the sub quantum, fluid mass. There's a lot of weird, crazy terms for it, but basically you go really, 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 really deep into like the small scale, and there's like a bubbling chaos of reality.
Yeah.
And like black holes are apparently popping in and out all the time around there. They're not big enough to be sustained, and that's where like particles and antiparticles are like like coming out of nothing and then like hitting each other back again and then going back into nothing.
Yep. Yeah, that's the quantum, quantum foam or whatever.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird terms. Oh, apparently, though, in another one of the tests, NASA, a group from NASA was doing some tests about like a propulsion type system that doesn't utilize a fuel. And they gained like some sort of, like oomph back, a very small oomph, such a small oomph that happened on the negative test that it's pretty sure it's just like a measuring error or some sort of like testing error. They're not certain which, but the media picked up on it and said, oh boy, we've created like a propulsion thing that can push against nothing and get some oomph. And like, what's it pushing against? And one person says, it's pushing against the quantum foam, I think. But no, it's really just them saying, hey, we were doing some tests and we got this weird reading. Does anybody know what we did wrong? Could you look at our work and double check it for us? Which happens a lot in science. It's not just, angry peer reviews. Sometimes it's like, hey, anybody help me with what I did here? What craziness happened on this? And someone will read it and go, okay, yeah, you needed to tighten the bolts over here, and, you were probably getting an extra feedback reading from your instrumentation. That's what you probably did wrong. You're going to want to, like higher quality caliper, focus your stuff.
Okay. Did I ever mention relativistic swimming on I may have in an early episode because it came up. At least it came to my attention a couple of years ago, and
do tell
in the podcast. But I'll try and post a link to I think there's a YouTube video out there on the show notes. But basically, they designed sort of I guess it's a robot, or it looks kind of like a creature. It looks like a creature. It's got a central body, and it's got like arms kind of sticking out with masses on the end of the arms. And the arms can expand and contract, kind of like telescoping. Arms.
Okay.
And then basically you push the arms out, and I believe then you can swing them forward and then pull them back in. And I can't remember how exactly the math works, or I didn't know how the math works.
Well, it'd be the basic same as an aerofoil. All you need is like something to expand at the end, and so that when it's pushing back, it's bigger, and then have it deflate and then retract, and then it doesn't draw as much like push against itself. And that's basically how swimming works. Like your hands are out when you're pushing against the water, and then you slide them thin as you move it forward again to put up into position. You're basically crawling through the water, and that's basically how we swim, which is kind of sad and pathetic when you think about it. There's the fish doing their fun little tail movements and all that, and we're basically crawling,
yeah, but when we
like
swim,
in the sand.
when we like move through water or whatever, we're actually like pushing against the medium. Whereas in space, there is no medium.
Yeah,
so it's actually very inefficient. It doesn't get you very far very fast, but you can actually like. I can't remember how it exactly works. I'm sorry. This is not going very far. But yeah, you can, through the relativistic, because things expand and contract when you move and things like that.
The center of gravity, mass, and all that changes.
Yeah, you can generate momentum just simply by
pushing against the near nothing of space itself.
Yeah, you just change the shape of your own configuration. So
polymorphic, attributions and all that sort of stuff.
Sure, yeah. So that's a thing that happens.
And what do these all things have in common? Being able to push against nothing for like a propulsion or for like a fuelless propulsion system, or like pinging another reality. Because I mean, like these are like standard tropes in science fiction. And it's, oh, hey, look, technology progresses, and all of a sudden what was science fiction is suddenly becoming like an actual, like, real possibility.
Yeah. Well, that's the cool thing about science, is science fiction does some really neat things, but then often, science reality is way weirder.
Oh, yeah.
It might be in some cases less applicable, like maybe we can't get a wormhole or a black hole, but it is definitely weirder than was previous, people used to think.
I know. It's probably not going to go that way in the test. It's probably going to like a dozen different results that are all going to say, no, there is no like alternate reality we pinged against. There's no more evidence that another reality exists except the one we have. But I do see this as maybe the best potential contact with an alien species possible. Because I've been thinking about it, and they always say like if you come in contact with another two groups come in contact, the lesser technologically developed one usually winds up getting kind of crushed by the other one, right?
Okay, yeah.
Conquistadors take over South America by killing everyone because they have better killing technology. And kind of repeat throughout human history and get a view of how things work, right? And so it occurs to me, I'm thinking, like, what would be a good way to contact an alien species without getting, ourselves subsumed by their technological situation? And it's like, well, what if the only thing that was really better for them was some small scale, like propulsion systems, unmanned, and, really sweet, teleconferencing abilities. So that instead of actually having an alien spaceship show up, we basically, get, hooked up to, the alien internet, the Galactanet.
Oh, yeah.
And so that way we don't, have any technological edge on them. They don't have any edge on us, except for, they have better communications network. And then it's just, much more in equal footing. So in this case, oh, hey, there's another reality, just, I guess, over in the nth direction from us, whichever way you have to turn to get that way. Things get really weird at that scale. There's more than 3 dimensions, and it's really hard to describe.
Well, I remember, some people have posited that it's possible that, there might be a star out there that's beaming, galactic internet, just another star in our own galaxy.
We don't have the proper modem to the
yeah, basically bathing us in it, and all we have to do is point the right. That's what SETI's doing. They haven't managed to get the whole sky, but they have to get just the right point.
So it's basically the modem trying to connect to the internet, then, except that it's taking a period of years, and then the modem has to decipher the language at which the HTML is coming in.
Well, I
think the HTTP.
I think once we get a signal that looks artificial.
Oh, we did get the WOW signal, but okay, whatever.
Yeah, but no, once we get a consistent signal that's okay, this is definitely information. I think hopefully human beings are pretty good at deciphering codes and stuff. So
I give it about 5 years, because once we figure out there's an alien sending us information. This is a change in gears. Forget this, first gear sort of thing we're going in here. That's us shifting up into, fourth or fifth as soon as we can. Everything in society, what are they saying to us? We can learn all sorts of amazing stuff here.
Yeah.
So let's, okay, whatever. No more video games for 5 years. Everybody just, start using your computers to decipher this. And all of a sudden, everyone's computer, winds up becoming one massive, dispersed supercomputer to try and figure this out quicker. I would gladly lend a lot of my computing capacity for that. I still keep playing the little stuff that doesn't require a lot, like Minecraft and those ambient, idle games. But I can definitely see society shifting that way. But hey, figure this though: is like there's another reality over there, and we can ping back and forth, and if we can ping them, then eventually we can start sending like binary signals to them, and if they can perceive it and send it back, then we have got a very low connection rate internet-wise. And as technology improves on both sides, we can expand that out. Next thing you know, bam, we are connected up to, like internet-wise, information-wise to another reality.
Alternate reality internet. Yeah, sure. Why not?
The alternate.
Yeah.
And in which case, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe, it's giant, crazy tentacle beasts in the alternate dimension, but we don't have to worry about them coming and doing, like, crazy, horrible things. They can't get to us, but we can chat with each other, and maybe that's the best way to start a conversation between two incredibly different, societies.
They could send viruses over.
Yeah, but then they have to program the whole thing,
like
and we'd be doing it back, and I could see it definitely being a very secure connection back and forth, so that nobody winds up, dude, I'm hacking the other universe.
Yeah, but you know what? That seems very unlikely to me because most of our universe, our galaxy and whatever, is empty space. So if you somehow punch through into one spot in
there's a very
spot
low
in our
chance.
Universe, you're going to find probably empty space.
Then again, it could be that when you're pinging another universe, it sends out a pulse signal where all you have to be is in the area to figure it out.
In light years worth of area?
We do not know yet. That's why we're doing fun little tests.
Because I'd imagine, we're talking stuff on sort of quantum level, so it's little quantum fluctuation way out, between the stars.
On the other hand, there is a theory as to what caused the Big Bang, being that two universes bumped each other. Two realities just kind of brushed up against each other, and the force between them caused what we know to be the Big Bang. Mm-hmm. We are some sort of weird, crazy blister between realities, which kind of explains a decent amount about human society as a whole. It's we're the product of a blister of reality. Rah!
I think we have pretty good handle on why humanity is mostly the way it is.
Yeah, but it gives us
evolution.
It gives us a decent excuse at least. You say, we're part of the blister universe. Doesn't it kind of give you more leeway to not be as civilized as possible? Because it's not like a lot of people out there are trying to be civilized. A lot of people seem to be just trying to coast at the lowest civilization setting they can get away with.
Yeah, some people are, but I don't know why
I'm trying to culture myself whenever possible. I'm learning more stuff. I'm trying to expand my mind, but I notice that it doesn't seem to be a common cultural trend.
Well, there are people who are, and there are. I'm sure all of our listeners are.
Oh, that's one of our key draws, is to try and give people amazing new ideas to fill their head with, and that is culture in a nutshell. If you're not putting new ideas in your head, you're in the stagnant, dark ages. That's horrible. So thank you, everyone out there, for doing better than the minimum possible.
I hope so. But yeah, no, I don't know if we need a cosmic explanation when we have a perfectly reasonable, it's evolution, it's different species competing, and, that's how life goes.
Yeah, but it does give us an extra excuse, and we kind of need a couple excuses to cover every horrible thing we're doing. So being part of the blister reality, well, at least it's something to explain it. Think about this. The other realities, the other universes are not going to, what's up with them? Here's a long list of things that goes on in there, and they've got something called natural selection that applies into these factors here, versus, what do you expect? They're from the blister reality. They're completely physical mass, so there's no real energy to their entire existence. They use it as some sort of motivational force. Otherwise, they're completely physical. What do you expect from that blister reality? Just yeah. They sent some good images though. They got a decent internet connection going on, so whatever.
Yeah, I guess if you think in terms of almost like a D&D plane sort of astral existence, which is more magical than physical, or you can have realms of entire complete sort of benevolence and goodness, maybe that they look down on Earth. I would imagine, my sort of picture of the multiverse would be that most places would be kind of just like Earth. I know that's maybe possibly not too imaginative, but I like to...
It does fit with interesting Buddhistic beliefs. that existence is suffering. So no matter where, in whatever reality you're in, no matter what universe you exist in, it's not like a get out of pain free card.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna kind of suck because that's how existence is.
Yeah. Well, we talked about having to take apart your Legos last week on the podcast. So yeah, so that whole thing, you got to make room for something new, and disassemble the old and repurpose it into another. So
a very poignant lesson to learn in life, I still say.
Right.
Nothing lasts forever, and you should probably get that into your head that maybe it's a good thing.
So that's Cern.
Yeah. So that's the thing, because it shows the shifting nature of like what is considered real and what is considered fiction. And I mean, just the fact that the boundary might be shifting is getting all sorts of people to think different things. I mean, I've seen a lot of jokes about like, oh, if the mist happens in real life, I guess we know who caused it. Like the Stephen King, both the story and then the movie. Was Mel Gibson in that one? That was a Mel Gibson one, wasn't it?
I don't think I saw that one.
Oh.
The Mist? No.
The Mist, yeah. It was an interesting movie. It was basically like a zombie movie. A lot of people are scared into a small confined location under high stress. In this case, there happens to be not zombies, horrible otherworldly things. I mean, heck, Lovecraft wrote very well on a lot of that sort of stuff about the other realities, that do not play nicely with our own laws of cosmology as we know them. We've seen like the Warhammer 40k universe where you can go into the warp, and how do you get from A to B, faster and late? You got to go in the warp, but you need protection because basically the warp is like a Berbering hell of insanity. And then you can see that on like the Event Horizon movie too, which I do recommend. It's basically like seeing what would happen if you go into the Warhammer universe's warp without protection. You basically enter hell.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I wanted to bring up the Philadelphia experiment just because people, our listeners have probably heard of it, but if you haven't, I suppose just Google it. I'll put a link in the show notes.
Go watch the movie. It's a bit of an old movie for that, but it kind of gets the point across.
Yeah. So this was when they, I think they were talking about Einstein's unified field theory, and they're figuring out that electromagnetic force, the electromagnetic force, is actually another manifestation of the weak nuclear force.
So they're all tied together. It's a string thing, like they're all the same parts of the same.
They haven't been able to tie the strong force to the weak force.
Not definitively.
And gravity to any of them.
I believe they do have mathematical models, which is something that CERN's going to be testing out as well. When they can figure out, like, okay, now that we have the technology, how can we make a test that proves one way or another on this sort of stuff?
Okay.
Because, science, you can't just blindly test. That's mad science. That's bad science. If you're going to do proper testing, you have to say, okay, now, if we're going to do this, and it goes this way, that means this, and not this. We have to be able to figure this out, what it's going to mean beforehand, and then run the test, analyze the results, and plug that into our equation. Oh, hey, look, it turns out, no, as we know it, alternate realities do not exist, because the mathematical, stuff of what we did at the subatomic level went left instead of right.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So they made a machine that they put on this battleship. I think it's called the USS Philadelphia, I think that's why it's called the Philadelphia experiment.
I don't know. Knowing the military of America, they could have just picked a random name for it.
Okay. Anyways,
just remember the D in D-Day stands for day.
Oh yeah.
D-Day is Day.
Oh, okay.
They're fun and crazy that way. They have a lot of humor with that.
They put a machine that generated an intense electromagnetic radiation field,
and it was supposed to cloak the whole thing in invisibility, so that you can't see it.
And then supposedly it went into another dimension and then came back.
And there's people like fused with the bulkheads, and other people fell over and they were never seen again. But they didn't land in the water. Wherever they were, there was no water underneath the ship.
Yeah. So that was super creepy.
I guess reality dose in this one. If something like that was to happen, you'd probably see a larger rate in tumorous cancer growth in later decades of anybody in the field area. Although even that hasn't been conclusively proven.
Because certain kinds of radiation, like gamma rays, will do that to you.
And I do know that powerful electromagnetics over the course of time is not good for the human body as a whole. They still have not conclusively proved that, but there does seem to be some more than correlation.
Well, like getting electrocuted is not good for you.
Well, there's that, yeah. But I'm talking about like people how they, I live underneath a power line and everyone in my family has cancer, sort of thing. Whereas, like the more, I guess reasonable conclusion from that is, well, you're living in a low-income area. That's why you're underneath a power line. So you're eating foods that are carcinogenic, as opposed to the wires, or have an electromagnetic field giving you cancer.
Yeah, it could be other. Yeah.
But that said, there's some information that they have that doesn't seem to be leaning either way. So before that information falls down, I'll still say there's a potential that being around a whole lot of electromagnetic fields might not be good for your head. Brain cancer might not be good for your intestinal cancer. I may have to retract that as the information is able to fall definitively down one way or another when they test it. Because for me, doing a test in science is like chopping down a tree. The answer only comes in which way ever it falls.
Okay.
If the data falls one way, it means this. If the data falls another way, it means that.
No, the way you said it was kind of odd. Whichever way it falls.
Yeah, whichever way the information falls.
Okay.
We are living in an era where the boundary between real and fiction is actively, potentially shifting about. And that's kind of rocking. It's a nice time to be alive.
Yeah.
Especially if that propulsion, system works out to any actual degree. That means we could, as soon as we can get someone up into space, we can design a spaceship that
we can do that. We have a thing called a rocket.
Yeah, but it's basically being on a controlled explosion. I still feel it's pretty darn primitive for the 21st century.
You're thinking space elevator?
Space elevator, or maybe some sort of, gravity blocking, thing, or because, graviton, like blocking fields or something.
I think space elevator's going to happen first.
Sadly, you're probably right.
Sadly? Come on.
It's like, okay, well, I flip the switch and all of a sudden gravity doesn't affect me. Woo!
Although, can you imagine, space, depending on the design of the space elevator, it can take like a 2-week ascent, because I don't know why, but imagine 2 weeks of elevator music, just
do 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 do. Yeah, I could probably weather that. That said, they don't have access to Sirius satellite. Dude, you're building a space elevator. Put in a satellite, a Sirius satellite system going on here, so you can at least choose what music you're listening to for the next 14 days.
I guess you could have Wi-Fi on
you better have Wi-Fi if you're sitting around that long. But that is also why I like the concept of some sort of field that blocks graviton particles. In which case, you flip the switch and you suddenly fall off the planet because gravity no longer affects you. That's kind of awesome. You gotta give me that. Come on, man.
Yeah. Or how about just magic? Somebody's got to invent magic, so.
Okay. That's the thing. Oh, yeah. If you are working on that sort of thing, some sort of field that negates it, call it the magic field. Let's just have a lot of fun with this.
Magic.
How'd you do it? Magic. The magic field. That's what I've called it.
Somebody tried to call the Higgs boson the God particle.
That's actually condensed down. It's supposed to be called the goddamn particle because it was such a hard thing to locate. But the publisher said, no, dude, you can't call it goddamn sort of thing on here. So I was like, okay, we'll call it the God particle. It really means the goddamn particle.
Okay.
But yeah, cool. So other people will say, that means it's so elusive, it's like finding God itself.
Yeah.
Which I guess in a poetic sense is kind of true, but it was not the original intent. Although with poetry, sometimes the original intent gets bypassed and everyone sees a different meaning that looks really deep and awesome. So, whichever way you go.
Okay, yeah.
Accept praise when you can, because it doesn't come often enough. Welcome to life.
Yeah.
That's the big news story this week. We're in a time and a place whereby potentially what is fiction will become reality, and it might not even be a multi-year trip to Mars sort of thing. It might just be 3-4 weeks. What you said, because currently with the system, any ship going to Mars right now is going to be 80% fuel. It will have to push its own fuel source, whereas a propulsion system that doesn't require a fuel to push it down.
How are these connected? How is this CERN?
They're both things that are going on right now.
They're just happening at the same time?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
And so yeah, like if you have a spaceship that doesn't have to be 80% fuel by mass, then you can build a much smaller spaceship, and that way you can just, really get your move on once you start. Even if it's generating a little push, because you've got so much less inertia to fight against, you can really get your high speeds up a lot quicker that way. So yeah, instead of taking like 3 years to get to Mars, it could be 3 weeks. What it would take you to get to space is the same amount of time it would take to get to Mars from space. Yeah, think about that. Say, the worst part about this space elevator is knowing that if I had come in 2 weeks earlier, I could be at Mars by now. Imagine that. That's like, it's like, darn it, I'm going to have to wait another 2 weeks before I can go to Mars again. We're just living in that sort of world, where that is a distinct possibility for maybe not us, but definitely the next generation. Because, I won't lie, I'm getting some gray hairs. I'm getting old. The chances of me becoming a space, pilot or something like that are getting remotely slim. Oh, well. Hey, Buzz Aldrin made it up in 1977. I still got myself a couple decades to make it happen, at least once. I'll go to the Orbital Hilton, just for a weekend or something.
Right.
Yes,
so I wanted to bring up local news. Stuff that's happening in Victoria. I wanted to bring up that we're doing Roll for Initiative next weekend, next Saturday.
Well, you are. I don't think I'll be able to make it.
Right, yeah. I'm going to be going. I'm going to be there. I won't be this week. This week at least. And probably, I don't think I'll be doing Dungeon Mastering there. But I'll just be joining in as a player. And I'm looking forward to, interacting with other players and DMs there. And so, yeah, if... again, it'll be in the show notes. Roll for Initiative is in Victoria. It's near UVic, and it's on Saturday, the 28th, coming up next weekend. So I'll report back from it on the next podcast. You'll hear all about it. It'll be, I played D&D. It'll be what I did this week.
Got my geek on.
Yeah.
Very nice. So what about your geek on this last week, Josh? What'd you do?
Oh, wow. I guess I played Minecraft a little bit. I'm back into Minecraft.
Okay.
I played it last week, yeah.
So you're stopping the survival game for now.
Oh, right. Don't Starve? Yeah, I haven't played that in a while, yeah.
You kind of overdosed on it. Now you got to back off a little bit. Make sure you get the proper dosage.
Yeah, I don't have enough time to play all the games I want to play.
Hey, that's okay, because maybe if Cern, does something wrong, they'll break reality and we'll get more hours in the day.
Yeah.
So many more hours, we'll need a 24-month calendar, in which case we got the edge on that because we're already ahead of the game. So, oh, by the way, I hear you guys broke reality. Here's a 24-month calendar. You might need it. We designed it ahead of time.
Yes, indeed. So in the game, in my Minecraft travels, I have gone back to done a lot of caving. Like I found moved out to a brand new area in my world where I haven't really.
And this is your long running game.
Yeah, my single player, long running game. I went back to this area. It's fairly close to my spawn continent. It's pretty near there. And then so I've started a brand new just caving, just wherever I can, none of this branch mining or anything like that. Just follow the caves and see where it takes me. It's very I don't know, relaxing, I guess. It's
relaxing for you. I hate caving because it's always like there's not enough proper light up ahead. Who knows what's crawling down here? Oh, turn a corner, then there's 3 creepers. Back up, get the bow going.
No, I've had a lot of creeper run-ins, and I didn't die at
Hooray!
all. Not yet, anyways. Just finding diamonds, just mining up some diamonds, mining up some redstone.
I still have yet to get a diamond in my game. I'm down at the area, but right now I'm looking for redstone. So yeah. So yeah, anything else is like how the difference plays out for you for doing just pure caving as opposed to doing your mining caving combo thing?
I don't know. It's just nice to just play the game and just see where it takes you. Yeah.
Ride the current, so to speak. Eh?
Yeah, and I think it's less efficient the way I'm doing it. I don't know, just cave. It's hard to say because
I've seen a thing where they go from start to killing the Ender Dragon in like 11.5 minutes.
Oh yeah.
So it shows me no matter what we're doing, it is not efficient.
That's true. Yeah.
Turns out beds are the best weapon in the end, eh?
Oh, beds.
Yeah, anytime you try and sleep in a bed, it causes a big explosion. So he defeats the Ender Dragon by popping down a bed, putting like a blast block for himself to hide behind, and then trying to sleep just as the dragon's going over top, and then it blows up like a big old landmine.
Huh.
6 of them takes care of the Ender Dragon. Oh, you got to get rid of the like energy, the regeneration things first. But yeah, apparently the best weapon in the standard game is a bed. Had not occurred to me. Oh well.
Yeah, and I think that's about. Yeah, I haven't done much else this week. Just a little bit of Minecraft, and that's about it.
Because I have been rather busy reading some old material of mine. Because as I've discussed in the last couple iterations, I want to try and get a 5th edition adventure sort of thing under my belt, something I write and run, something that gets a nice little okay, here's some rules I think we should cover, and here's how the combat works in basics and all that, and just like a nice thing for first timers of the 5th edition. Because Lord knows I'm a first timer, and so I'm like, if I'm going to write an adventure, maybe I should have some sort of weird scaffolding to work with. Like, how do I set up my own write down, like what everything's going on in every little area and all that. So I have something like that. It's called the Dungeon Magazine. All the Dungeon magazines I have. And so I picked out a few of the ones, and hey, good, this one's got, there's a nice couple of adventures done by some of the very classic, masters of the 3rd edition. Skip Williams, Tracy Hickman, Monty Cook, they're all there, sort of thing. So I'm reading from the masters when I'm doing this. And then in the back of the one issue I've got, it's like, hey, nice little guidelines for submitting to Dungeon Magazine.
Oh, yeah.
I could totally use this. This is exactly what I'm looking for. But I found in my spare time, whenever it's like, okay, I'll let this run on my computer, whatever I'm going to do, I got 10 minutes to spare and all that. I'm picking up the magazine. I got 2 of them out right now. Because I check them out like I'm in a library. I don't just take any of them out. And I'm looking through them, and I'm browsing, and I'm reading the adventures a little bit more thoroughly than I did before. Back when I first got them, these were from 2000, 2001. When I first got them, it's like, okay, I like this adventure, but I have other friends who are buying these magazines as well. They might want to run the adventure. I won't spoil it for myself and for them. So I'll make sure just do read the synopsis and in the background stuff, but don't actually read what's in the chambers. Look at the fun artwork they've got, but don't go too deep. Now I say, you know what? I'm going to say decade limitation is up. I'm going to read the heck out of these things. I'm going to learn. I'm going to study. I'm going to put my mind in here. I'm going to become a better person.
Yeah.
And so I'm
getting a dungeon designer.
Now, there's some amazingly good artwork for dungeon design. I would like to double check and figure out what program they were using, because you can tell it's CG stuff, but it's very nicely done.
It was probably Photoshop, right?
Some of them were done Photoshop. The one with Tracy Hickman, which was definitely a CG, like a poser thing for some of the stuff, because it needed 3-dimensional workouts.
Okay, so it might have been, like
other
a 3D
ones
modeling
were just, some sort of cartographer type program. So I'll have to double check to see what is in the notes as to what sort of programs they were using for that. Very nicely done. If I can find a free version for myself, I'll probably do that and do a nice proper little dungeon design. Because my adventure is going to wind up with a dungeon. I want to keep this classic and basic, something familiar and easy to get your mind wrapped around, so that you can focus on learning the rules of combat, learning this and how this goes.
It occurs to me there might be something in Unity. Unity's like a game design engine.
Yes, I have heard of that.
Yeah, I mentioned I was playing around with it a little bit too, and you might be able, because it can do 3D renderings, so you can get that. You can get the 3D scenes out of it, but you can also sort of create objects and duplicate them and stuff.
This was clearly a 2D designs for some of these maps I was looking at. Very nicely colored, rich colors, clean lines. With a top-down style to it. Although I would not have minded like an isometric image for some of the smaller dungeon things to really set up the motif. But it's a little too late for that. It's like a decade and a half ago now for some of the issues I'm looking at. I can't really go back in time yet and tell them, hey, you should try an isometric design for a small dungeon. Well, whatever. But yeah, I'm getting a lot of extra run out of my older products thanks to my new products, because I want to try and do better.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good point about making new editions. Is that people sometimes say, oh, why do they have to always do new editions? Why can't they just sort of keep with the old one? But whenever they update to a new edition, if they do it right, the
fluff stays the same.
Yeah, it reignites your interest, and you kind of look at old stuff and you say, oh, well, I can look at this in a new light now.
So how would I convert this? It's like, okay, I see how they're running the whole thing here, and the synopsis says, okay, what you should have for potential stuff. So I got to keep an eye out. Like, should I have like a note that you're going to want a lot of spellcasters, you're going to want a lot of physical guys, you're going to need at least one healer going on. Like, keep an eye out for this.
Because if nothing ever changed, you wouldn't think, oh, I have to go back to it and check it to see what's going to work. You'd think, oh, well, I already know how the rules go, so I don't need to look at that, dungeon or whatever.
Or I suppose, I could get nostalgic for 3rd and 3.5 edition. I could roll up some characters and then find adventures of the appropriate level to, run themselves through. Mm-hmm. But I find that to be a little sad, because D&D is very much a group activity. Yay! It's like you're a party of adventurers, not just one person. And if you're both the dungeon master and the players, are you getting the full experience out? Don't get me wrong, it is good for learning the rules. It's like, okay, I'm going to test myself. I got 4 generic adventures here and some generic monsters, and let's see how the combat rolls through. So I got a nice little handle on things. Versus, okay, I think I know what I'm doing, but let's play it all and just kind of learn as we go. Both adequate, but, sometimes a little preparation helps out. But yeah, I could run characters from 1st to 20th level with all the adventures I have in the Dungeon magazine.
Well, yeah, probably multiple times.
No, definitely multiple times. There's 4 adventures of different levels per issue, and I got about 100 issues. Yeah, I can do it. Mm-hmm. I can do it and spend a lot of experience points on magic item creation. I could level an entire stable of adventurers. That could be pretty awesome. But as a father, I don't think I'm going to have the time for doing that, at least right now.
Right, but you can at least work on your main project, your main one dungeon, and then have it ready by, a whole year. You have to work on it.
Let's call it 11 months now. I want to make sure I'm ready with a little time to spare.
In 20 whatever year it'll be.
In 2016. Because I keep proper track of the years, even though they tick by so darn slowly.
I can edit that whole part out.
Yeah, I know, but don't worry, because that gives you a quirk and a character, Josh.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, he's the forgetful guy. Yeah.
But yeah, I've been enjoying a lot of that. So my daughter is liking it too, because she grabs it, she goes, Daddy's books, and then she puts the magazine on there and she starts flipping through the pages. Very nicely, once I told her be very careful with it, she's flipping carefully.
Oh, yeah?
And she's looking, oh, it's scary, looking at a monster. It's like, oh, pretty, looking at a dungeon design, and she's flipping through, and she's looking, oh, look at that, Daddy, look. And so, it's just beautiful. I'm absolutely loving that, and that she's taking an interest in looking at Daddy's books, because, she's a young kid, she doesn't know how to read, let alone understand the gaming system. So she's just in there for the images. And she's got her own books, done and illustrated by Dr. Seuss, and it's really hard to compete against visual images of Dr. Seuss's work. He's a master craftsman of his style, both written as well as visual. But the fact that she wants to sit down and look at Daddy's books and look at the images that entice her in there, and it's like, ooh, I'm digging it, hooray! So that was an interesting little added bonus to going through the old content.
Cool.
Other than that, I've been doing a little bit of Minecraft. I've been moving stuff around. I've been making, my final structures, because I'm doing the thaumatology mod. I want to make a big, room to make sure I don't have... In the thaumatology thing, when you have, an infusion altar, certain items count towards, symmetry. And the more symmetrical you are in the area, the better things are. The less chance of magical mishaps happening when you try and enchant an item. Which, I guess, makes sense, right? But I don't want to make anything wrong. I don't want to find out, oh yeah, by the way, it counts so many squares underneath, so these things you put on the roof are causing a lot of disharmony, and that's making it almost impossible for you to do anything. So it's like, okay, it's this many squares down, this many squares over, this many squares up. That's my big room, and I guess I'll put some rooms underneath, and so I'm building a nice kind of wizard's tower out of that.
Oh, cool.
But to build the wizard's tower where I wanted, I kind of had to take my smeltery and move that. So I've moved everything around in that little area. But I got the smeltery effectively done. I'm just working on little quirks and pieces here, and I am really enjoying it. I took I found out that you can get smelted stone. You put in like 8 blocks of cobblestone, and it turns out into 1 block of the seared thing, which is, I guess, tone-wise, you know how the bedrock is a real dark, reshading version of just regular stone?
Yes.
This meets it midway through.
Okay.
And
sure.
you can make a chisel, and you can chisel it, and so you can get the style on the side, like with sandstone and the chiseled blocks for the regular stone.
Okay.
And so I did that everywhere, and this thing it's got kind of like an Assyrian sort of temple motif. And I had a few blocks of netherrack I managed to accumulate without actually needing to go to the nether.
Oh, so you actually mentioned the nether?
No. Turns out in one of the other mods I've got, there's like rundown academies for paleontology, and some of the blocks are changed out with mossy stone or just even clay. And there's I found about 4 per one of these with netherrack, and so I've decided to put them up on the top, and now I've got like burning braziers up at the top. Rah! It's got like a real,
like braziers.
Braziers. I like to mispronounce it. I have more fun that way. So yeah, and braziers. We'll keep it clean. I'll acquiesce to you on the braziers.
Well, I mean,
I like mispronouncing things. It leads to more fun. But yeah, I've got. I'm going to have 8 for the main level, and then what I've done is in the center, on top of my smeltery, I've made a mob grinder, so that then every once in a while a zombie falls down into my smeltery and starts taking damage, and I gain like some free blood resources, which I can use to make.
Zombie blood.
Yeah, and that's the thing is I've really taken all the lessons I can, so I can now extract specific substances from the smeltery without needing to like turn them into a big block or like an ingot or even a nugget. I can put them in glass boxes that'll store it.
Okay.
And I've got a few things accumulated, a couple millibars of this and millibars of that, and I've almost got a full box, like 4 like bars, worth of blood accumulated this way. But get this. I've got Ender, liquid Ender. Okay. Apparently there's a chance that when an Enderman teleports, they'll teleport anywhere, even someplace that's a little dangerous for them, like the smeltery. And so they'll teleport, get hurt, and then teleport out. So I've got just a wee bit. So I am very slowly...
So is it Ender blood or just Ender essence?
It's liquid Ender, is what it is.
Okay.
You can
essence
take
of Ender.
You can take like the Ender pearls
like
and liquefy them down. But what I can do now is just as time goes and I accumulate more of this liquid Ender, I can like make my own Ender sphere, Ender pearls and all that stuff. So I was like, rock. So yeah, I think with that mod, the Tinker's mod in there, I could eventually smelt that down into like endstone if I wanted to. Without actually going to the end, I could create endstone by a lot of Ender blood. Okay. But yeah, I've had a little fun with that. I might do a little bit of reworking, because right now I've got that liquid water dropping into the thing. It doesn't do anything, it's just visual. But I might want to wind up opening up and making it 1 square higher, so that way I can have a nice block layer so that the water isn't dripping down all the time.
Yeah.
But I gotta say, with the dark color in there, I have like no windows in my smeltery. I did get like the glass boxes. I've got a ring of them in my area filled with lava, so they do produce some light. But it's very dark. The whole thing just sucks the light out. It can be wonderful noon out there. You go into this place and it feels like you are deep, deep underground, deeper than the regular caverns are. It's just such a dark, like soul-sucking place. This is a place of industry, not a place of creativity.
Right. Do monsters spawn in there?
No, because of the light ring I've got of blocks in the floor, there is no area for any monsters to spawn except up in the mob grinder. Although I will have to do some caving underneath, as I know there's at least one little cave there where monsters are spawning. But yeah, so I've managed to, I put up my crafting, wizard's tower on hold just a wee bit, and instead I've made this horrible little dark room where monsters are always moaning because of the mob grinder up above. And it is always nighttime. It is always oppressively dark.
I remember in your last world, you probably still have it, you were trying to make like a giant barrier over the whole land for an eternal night.
Yes. That one wound up hitting some snags in that I am having just the most impossible time getting anything enchanted with the Silk Touch. I'm trying shovels, I'm trying picks, I'm getting nothing.
Oh yeah. Oh, I did a bunch of that too in my game this week.
And it's just been so, like, I'm gonna have to go through the Tinker's mod. Like I found some gold berry bushes, so I can get like little nuggets of gold, so I can utilize that to effectively make the requirement to add that to any of my Tinker's items to get the Silk Touch. And it's like, I don't want to go that route because, like, for me, Silk Touch is like the pinnacle of magical creation.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, like, I want to randomly get it because it's like Diablo 2, where you're like, oh boy, look at this magical item I randomly rolled. It's awesome, and I did it from the randomness. Whereas the Tinker stuff seems very designed, which is useful, getting what you want, but it doesn't have that same primal joy of, like, I lucked out and I have won. This is my lottery, I've won.
My preference with playing the game is I'm not happy with the length of time it takes to get Silk Touch and the fact that it is random. Like, I'm not, I don't think that's a good game design decision because it just ended up being just a whole bunch of grinding and I mean.
Well, I do have essence berry bushes. I can get myself to level 30 about, I'm going to say 4 times in 5 minutes if I need to. I've got like stacks of these essence berries just sitting around.
Okay. Yeah.
So, like, but by the time I like wear out because I'm only enchanting one shovel at a time, and whenever I use up that one, then I'll enchant the next one up.
Yeah.
And by that time, I'm already level 30 from all the smelting work I've done. So it's like, not really needing the essence berries right now.
Sure.
Oh well. But yeah, I've been enjoying what I have been doing, and just the motif. Like, I've got the outline of the building on all the areas done in a particular set of designs. Like the vertical corner bits are done back and forth with 2 types of chiseled stone, whereas any horizontal area connection is done with a 3rd type. And back and forth together with a brick in the middle has come up with a very nice style to it.
I would like to put up a screenshot on the blog if we can.
Okay, I'll see what I can do about getting a nice quick shot out there.
Or even on the Facebook page, I suppose.
I'll see what I can do about putting one up on there. And I really do like, because I look at this and I say, yes, this time last year I don't think I would have created something as good. And admittedly, my first design was not as good. It was just the standard, dark stone, and I build it up in the shape I want, and I'm looking at it, it's like, it's kind of, it works, but it doesn't look as awesome as it could. So I took it down brick by brick and chiseled it to the shape I want and put it back up again. Not the first time I've done that to a building, but I really do like the style and the design of it, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, yes. And then I look back at my Wizard's Tower and say, I was about to make the same mistake. All the outer walls were just going to be either windows or standard, brick blocks. But I've got a chisel. I can do some stuff. So I've reworked some of the flagstone design on the ground. I'm thinking about doing some work in the corners in the same sort of style, just to give it a little bit more definition, I think is the best term of it. Because right now, if you put all one stone, it's not going to look as well. You're going to look at it and you're going to go, it's just like a solid, style design, flat. I need this to pop out in the corners.
Yeah.
And in my infusion room, I will be doing pillars of various colors in different areas, because that doesn't affect, symmetry, balance. But I do want to make certain that, okay, if there's going to be 12 areas where I'm supposed to put stuff, I want to know where I'm going to qualify my top pillar. Which one counts as pillar 1 when I'm looking through the pattern and seeing which way to go.
Okay.
So I'm going to have a gold here, and lapis lazuli tower, a pillar there, and all sorts of stuff. And I'm going to make sure I get this right, so that way I don't confuse myself and mess up. I want to get this right. I want to look just rock on, throw up the horns, awesome when I'm done.
Okay. All right.
And fingers crossed, if I can get enough redstone, I can really get started, because I want the entire base around the infusion thing with that nice bright red brick of the redstone block. And
okay, yeah.
I've gotten 5 blocks, but I need another 12 more, so that means a lot of caving work myself.
If you were on my world, you could have basically a chest full.
Well, see, that's the thing, though, is that I could go over to my quarry, but right now my quarry's got a cave thing I haven't really adventured in. It's I got 3 cave areas to go through right now in the area of my main town. The quarry over there's got at least 1 going on there.
Yeah.
I'm also taking down an academy over in a 3rd location. I just have to go back and finish it off, and that's done. But there's a lot of stuff I want to make notes of here and there, because there's a lot of little things I want to pick up when I get the ability to later on.
It's so weird that you have done like some really elaborate stuff. You've done a lot in the game, and yet for some reason you've sort of skipped major, like, you don't do caving, you don't do the nether.
Well, in this case, it seems to be the persona of the character I'm playing.
Okay,
like in my previous world, I did a lot of caving. I was all over in the depths of several different universes there.
Okay.
And it was like, yeah, caving, no big deal. I mean, like, I don't need to go to the nether that much since I've got, the Mistcraft stuff. I'll make a world I want. Ah.
Sure, yeah.
And forget you, hell dimension. I'll make a wonderful dimension of deserts and beaches. I'll call this, the beach party biome. Rah. And so I guess, I still plan on doing it. I'm looking right now also at prison design complexes, because I want to use the Soul Shard mod to effectively create some stuff, and I want the whole thing to have like a sort of like a prison sort of feel to it. So I'm looking at that as I slowly work out a design, as I'm working on my other buildings that I am doing good at.
Mm-hmm.
So, and with a nice income of iron, thanks to my iron ore bears, I can have a lot of steel bars in that prison area, so it'll really have a prison look to it, I think.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm happy about that. But it's going to take me a while to get all the blocks I need. So until then, I work on the other buildings as I slowly build up my massive iron resources.
Mm-hmm.
Be the ironmonger, as it were. But I do want to do more caving, because that gets me more ore berries of different types, which gets me more... But oh my god, do I have more aluminum than I ever need to do. I don't need it, but I keep finding the berry bushes, and I can't stop collecting them. Because that's just the nature of who I am. Oh well.
Alright.
But yeah, that's been me this week, is trying to push my boundaries of artistic skill. I can't draw, but at least I can make something look good in a game I'm playing.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm getting better at it every time.
No, that's good. Yeah, I think Minecraft is a real good tool that way. It's very fulfilling to make.
That said, I don't like doing it very often on creative mode. I do some tests.
Like,
okay, does this, does this size work out for a building? Can I make that work? No. Okay, try it a little bigger and do this. And does this style work? Can I actually get people living in these houses? Okay, yeah, that seems to be attracting, people there. Let's go with it. I don't derive the joy and the satisfaction as playing on the the real sort of thing.
Yeah, I think I've mentioned that
survival
too.
style.
I don't enjoy creative mode as much either. Yeah.
Oh well, what you gonna do? I mean, I guess it's a personal taste. If you just want to play around, it's definitely the way to go. Like, there's been some work I was doing, for trying to get the mob grinder to work when I was first trying that I needed to try creative mode, because otherwise it would have taken me forever and nothing would have worked. Why is it not working right? Is it the monsters in the caves spawning more often? Is it something wrong with my design? So in which case, creative mode really does help out for testing theory. Theory craft, as it were.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, we did have also. I think we're ready for a main topic.
Yes. Let's see how to describe it. I was thinking about Kevin Smith this week, because Kevin Smith is kind of awesome, and he's always worth at least thinking a little bit about, right?
Right. And they mentioned that they're doing Clerks 3.
Yeah, right? Clerks 3, as well as the fact that he's not. It's not going to be his last movie. He's gotten back into the groove and the feel of things. He wants to do some other works too.
Yeah.
So hooray! But he did make some interesting stuff I listened to about what it was like for him to make the original Clerks. Not exactly big budget, but he did have things lining up in his favor. Like one person who really did like it, that had the connections to get the word out about this Clerks movie. You guys should see it. And, oh goodness, someone finally picked it up, and that starts his career. Mm-hmm. But he's saying that everyone should be making movies. If you want to make a movie, you should be making a movie. Because his daughter's iPhone has a better camera resolution than the cameras he made Clerks with. The technological barrier to making a movie is so much lower than it's ever been. Anyone with a 21st century phone, doesn't even need to be the last 5 years, anything in the 21st century should be better than what he was filming with back when he made Clerks. And I'm thinking to myself, you know what? That's a very powerful statement, because man, it's true. It's definitely this is not one person's opinion. This is a matter of fact true here.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking about it. It's so there have been some very good movies that have been made with a very little budget. Clerks obviously was done with, I think it was a $35,000 budget, which he put on his credit cards. My goodness, Kevin Smith, why would you do that? That's 20% interest rate. That's horrible. But you wound up paying it off, like without having to like work for another 12, 13 years, slowly paying it off nickel and dime at a time. So congratulations, you made ultimately the right choice. But I would not do that myself. And I was thinking about other like cheap budget movies. I don't think that the Blair Witch Project had even Kevin Smith's Clerks budget for that, with a found footage genre. And from what I remember in reading the book from Bruce Campbell, If Chins Could Kill, that there was a very low budget for filming The Evil Dead.
Okay.
And
so a bunch of low budget films,
and not necessarily in like just the horror or slice of life stuff. The bizarre comedy Attack of the Killer Tomatoes was only going to be $10,000 until they accidentally crashed their helicopter and had to pay a $40,000 deposit in full. So they wound up quintupling their budget to a whopping $50,000. And yet that's a movie that people will still look at and go like, that's hilarious. That's so bizarre, but absolutely hilarious. So you can do comedies on that low budget. And it should be even cheaper now that the technology barrier is so much lower. You can find like used phones. You go into like any of your local used stuff. You can find old phones for like $10 that you can utilize this as like camera recorders. Maybe not that steady, but at least they're higher resolution than like any of the films I've mentioned. And yet these independent low budget movies just aren't coming out. And I'm thinking to myself, why? Where is the next Clerks? Why is the next Clerks hasn't popped out if the technology is so much easier to get a hold of and use?
Well, I mean, people are doing low budget movies all the time. Like we just had a film festival. I didn't go, unfortunately, but we just had a film festival here in Victoria just last month.
But did any of the films, just hit that sort of nerve that sparked such a large reaction? Because the Blair Witch Project, oh my goodness, did that get a reaction back in its day?
I guess so, yeah. It was sort of a movie that everyone saw.
And then they had that nice little viral campaign of like, it's kind of actually real. And it's like, oh my god, we're going to watch it. People actually dying in the woods. And like, no, you're not. That would be a complete violation of ethics and like I think at least a few laws. But, apparently you bought into the hype, so, watch the movie and get scared thinking people are actually dying. This is really happening to real people. Whatever takes them into the movie, I suppose, get them in and believing. That's the first hurdle I think everyone has for a movie. But, these movies aren't coming out quite at the pace you'd imagine with everybody being able to do it, Like anybody with, half a notion in their head should be able to make some sort of movie, and you think something would hit the nerve and get produced, and oh my goodness, it's the next big thing. It's like a 15, it doesn't even need to be full length. Like, where's the 15-minute movie, that somebody made, and put up on...
Well, I mean, yeah, just search YouTube for independent films, and you will find
a lot
of stuff.
I've seen some very nice stuff that friends of mine have produced, but nothing, a lot of them got taken down a few years later when, whatever happens, goes out of style, like their acting troupe disbands and no one wants to keep up, so they just kind of scorched earth, erase everything, whatever. It don't exist anymore. It never did.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, like a lot of these movies, I never, okay, I want to watch a movie about people in a convenience store and a movie rental location. I never looked that up. Someone, said word of mouth, this Clerks movie's hilariously funny and kind of awesome.
Well, I didn't get turned on to Clerks until well into university because I wasn't. I mean, Clerks was. I was still.
Well, it was pretty
when
new
did it come out?
Clerks.
93.
Relatively new though, because back then things were a little different. It took a little bit more speed to get things rolling. Now, with the Blair Witch thing, you can have it up and be hugely hyped.
Well, Blair Witch
within the span of a year.
15 years ago.
15 years ago, but that was still when the internet was being a primal thing. When Kevin Smith put out his Clerks, the internet was not as we know it now. You couldn't get that steam rolling through that thing. You needed the word of mouth. You needed the papers, and the local art scenes to put the stuff out. You needed the word of mouth to travel somehow. The Evil Dead, I mean that one made it into the video rental stuff. It's like, oh my goodness, look what's going on here. There's people crawling out of the ground. There's a skull face going on there.
So what is the point?
So I'm thinking there's got to be there's basically a formula. I hate to say it, but it's kind of like pop music. There's a formula that you can utilize to determine these factors that will make, the next Clerks, the next Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
Well, you can buy books and you can read about, sort of how to write a Hollywood movie. I have one on my shelf, it's like Screenwriter's Guidebook. It's sort of almost a paint by numbers sort of thing. Like, this is how you make a movie. and it seems legit to me. It seems also that what they do is they break them down. They break down plots and they say there's positive, negative. There's those turns, positive to negative, negative, positive. There's the stuff about having a strong, likable lead, like your male lead.
It does very
lead.
much help to want to root for the good guy in a movie.
Yeah, so there's those sort of touchdowns that sort of touchstones that everybody knows. Touchdowns is a different thing, which I don't know.
And we'll call it touchdown if it manages to be a financial success when it's done.
Well, yeah, the word I was looking for is touchstone.
Okay.
That sort of everybody in the industry actually doing it sort of knows about. They know about, they talk about beats. You have to hit dramatic beats during scenes and stuff. So there is sort of
comedy
there's a way
beats if you want to go
it.
for a comedy, horror beats for horror and all that, as appropriate to the genre.
Yeah. Of course, and if you're like me, you're like, I'm going to throw everything in, and drama, comedy, scary stuff.
Hey,
everything.
Sometimes that works well together. If you can get the mix right, it becomes a very memorable thing, because that was so hilarious, but God, that next scene just scared me pantsless.
Yeah.
So, it really does help cement in that way, if you can get the ratio right for it.
And action movies tend to have kind of a mix, too. Like, if you look for your high adrenaline sort of action movies, like, The Hobbit and Star Trek and stuff like that, they have, that was scary, and, that was funny.
And then you've got, the one, sidekick guy, running around crazy, ha ha ha, he's completely out of his league for this. And so what became, what was just the high action sort of thing, also has that comedic undertone that way.
So you got a little bit.
You can play more than one note at a time here.
Yeah, exactly. So yes, I think there's a way to do it. There's a formula. There's paint by numbers if you really need it.
Because let's face it, a lot of the classic horror movies, you look at all the big name horror monster movies sort of thing, not really the most creative endeavor in all existence. A lot of them are kind of by-the-book numbers sort of thing.
I think so, yeah.
Try killing teens until 89 minutes is up, then kill the bad guy.
Yeah.
For reals this time.
I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, especially because you can, within those constraints, like you throw on a set of boundaries, and that actually sort of assists a little bit in creativity, because it's like, now I have this far to go, and then I can stop worrying about that scene because I know it conforms to whatever it's supposed to conform to.
Remember, unless you're a master, you cannot build a sandcastle without the pail to hold the sand in the proper shape. In which case, your genre constraints act as a pail.
Okay, nice analogy. Yes.
I mean, if you're a true artisanal master, you can use a big lump of heavily packed, sand, and you can carve out. That's the Stanley Kubricks of the world. They could carve anything out of anything. They can make that stuff work.
I think, and some people just write like, this is going to be awesome. Like, I came up with another analogy. Like, would you draw a sketch or a painting or a picture? Like, starting from the very top hair. Actually, people usually do draw the head first when they draw,
But they'll go through the outline. So here's the head. This is what they should be doing. There are a couple websites I go to that just show incredibly bad drawings that make it into, the comics, printed page. And so they're showing, look, according to this, there is no way this person's shoulder is actually attached to their body. Right now, as you're seeing it, their shoulder has dislocated physically from their torso.
Yeah. Well, I don't mind that too much, but imagine if you drew a picture.
It is good to show, though, for the whole thing. Yeah.
Just the top, like a printer prints out a printer, like the top lines of the head, and then, straight down. And
like
across,
that Bit and I robot where he's showing back and forth.
Other shoulder, and then a bit of the arm, bit of the other arm, and sort of waist, and then hands and either side, and sort of work your way down. That I think you can draw that way. And in the same way, you can write, a movie or a book or a story from beginning to end. In the same way, you could just start at the beginning and say, okay, what's going to happen next?
In which case, you're probably much better off doing the outline first and then fleshing it all in as each stage goes, as per both drawing and writing.
That's the alternative, yeah. And that way, you don't have a shoulder that's off dislocated over here. It's
this is actually three different body people here. The torso doesn't connect up. There's no way this goes here. The arm's there, and the neck is 3 times longer than it should be. You can't see it because of the stuff in front, but this is actually, if you drew the skeleton of the body, this is how it would go.
And I think when kids are I don't know if your daughter's drawing human figures yet, but
she is using me as a reference, and she looks at me and then draws an eye, but they're all squiggles and they're
okay.
you would really have to look at it very carefully to say, I see a human face out of here. But she's trying, she's starting, she's recognizing you got to have a base model to work with.
Because sometimes what you'll have is, a kid will, okay, here's a head and here's a body, and then, the body is like way down the page from the head. They're not
just connect it with the neck,
so
whatever.
Do a giant neck on there. There you go.
And that's what happens sometimes, I don't necessarily, bemoan it every time it happens, but it sometimes it does show you good luck. If you had done it this way and you started off this style here, you can get a much better look, and it looks like a real person this way. You don't get that weird thing. It's like, this is a nice scene, but what's going on there? And the same thing happens with a lot of critics when they're deconstructing a movie. It's like, okay, I know if you're watching it, it seems to follow, but if you stop and think for a second here, there's no reason anybody should have done this course of action. It doesn't flow the same way that the head doesn't attach to the neck this way.
Yeah, and if you can get your viewers to miss that, if you're, sort of a skilled editor or skilled, dramatist, and
or your pace is just so quick they don't have the time to think, in which case you can say, it's like, hey, the people who were in this scene didn't have time to stop and think, too. This was just a reaction. It was the wrong reaction, but it did lead to another 30 minutes of a scene. So, it fills out my 2-hour requirements. Whatever.
Yeah. And
it would be nice to see someone come out blatantly like that, too, instead of trying to cover it up.
Sometimes they will. Like, if somebody points out, there was an error in your movie in scene 42, this character could not have possibly known that she was no longer in love with so-and-so, and then the writer's like, that was just, I don't know, keep up with something.
There was a missing scene that was edited out, if that had been kept in. It's not my fault, it's the person who was doing the editing afterwards. I had it make sense. Trust me.
And also, this is partly the origin of fan fiction too, is where a fan will be like, there's a gap there. I don't know what's going on, and then they can write their own little version of fan fiction, post it on the internet.
Well, that's the thing is, like with the Star Trek stuff, if you watch the first appearance of Khan in the TV series, Chekhov does not appear at all. He's not in that episode. And yet, in the movie, The Wrath of Khan is like, I remember you. So Chekhov and the various people there have come up with a concept like Chekhov was on the ship, but he was using the bathroom for an extra long time, and he kept Khan waiting. And like when he comes out, Khan's like, I will remember your face. And so that's why he's so angry at Chekhov. It's not because he's one of the guys that tossed him on a planet to do nothing. Like their Botany Bay sort of thing. Mm-hmm. It's like no, he was the guy that held him up in the bathroom for an unreasonable amount of time. And so you do have even the actors themselves coming up with filling in the small little gaps. Fan fiction being the grout of a larger universe, I suppose.
Yeah, I like it.
This framework is how I would like everybody to try and perceive the concept of the prophecy situation. Where a lot of people see prophecy as I can see the future, and so this person will do this, this, and this, and that's what I foretell. Whereas instead, you can perceive the prophecy as, in order to meet all the requirements for this to happen, you would have to have someone go through these steps.
Okay, so a prophecy might have several parts, is what you're saying? A prophecy might be and the chosen person will have brown hair and brown eyes, and he will...
Here's the thing, though. Unless that is actually pivotal to the defeat of the big bad in this case, because they're usually about defeating a big bad or doing something amazing, that's usually not in the prophecy.
And the hero, the chosen hero, will find a great sword that is blue, and it will be lightning.
It glows blue upon the presence of orcs.
Good.
But here's the thing, they always put it in the fun words, the blade shall be blue when green is nearby. Stuff like that. In which case,
it's a very D&D.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing with Sting from The Hobbit. Whenever the orcs are there, it glows blue.
Yeah, but I don't think the orcs are green in The Hobbit.
Yeah, they were kind of greyish-green. They have gray, green, all sorts of weird little darker...
Green, same color.
Well, they hit that weird moldy sort of tone.
Some are pinkish. I mean, in the movie, they're pinkish. And
well, they want.
There's a white one, the white orc.
Yeah, the albino orc. Yeah. But here's the thing, sort of thing. Let's take a concept of there's a red dragon terrorizing the land. Come up with a prophecy for what it would take to defeat a red dragon. Mm-hmm. You're going to want protection from the fire. And so, what's a good protection from fire? Well, the hero would need armor from red dragon scales.
From another red dragon.
Well, you're not going to defeat the dragon to skin it so you can defeat that dragon. That's kind of defeats the purpose. So you're going to want to defeat a lesser dragon. So you can make up like a quatrain, because I like to take Notre Dame's style. He had a lot of style for his stuff. So we're going to make this prophecy in quatrains about how like the son must die before the father can perish, or the mother, whatever side of the gender the dragon's on. And so in that case, it's not necessarily that like you need to be some sort of child murdering horrible thing to destroy the evil dragon. You do, however, need to destroy the lesser red dragons to get your like red dragon armor to protect yourself from the fire, so that you don't burn to a crisp when you fight the giant great worm red dragon.
Okay, that fits very well in the sort of advancing quest. You would fight bigger and bigger dragons until sort of that's very D&D too.
Okay, well, what else would be good at defeating a dragon? Well, what else is a good tactic for that?
The black arrow from.
Okay, in that case, so you need to find a proper enchanted arrow. You need to find let's see, it's the black arrow. We'll call it the raven in this case. The quatrain would be about finding the raven, the small raven that takes down like the large fell beasts. In which case, there might be people questing out for like finding these horrible like death ravens. Like you go to the Monty Python with that Lagomorph of Carabanog. Where it's the rabbit killing everyone. Everyone's looking for like a raven doing that. Instead, you have to find the black arrow. Yeah. That'd be like a black arrow of dragon slaying.
Yeah.
You could try and have like the wizard find a spell book that has the spells that oh hey, this one has a lot of cold based spells and a lot of anti fire energy protection stuff. Maybe even the fly spells included in there. So that way you don't have to be stuck on the ground while the dragon's up in the air. You can follow it, and that way it doesn't have the tactical advantage of aerial supremacy.
Okay, so you have a whole bunch of prophecies telling all the things.
It'd be one long prophecy about needing to find what's a good analogy for a book? The mind of a wizard. You have to find the mind of the wizard long dead. The mind is all that remains of it, and so you have to. In which case, I guess you got to go into a trapped wizard's tomb to get the wizard's book. Don't worry, the wizard's not going to come back as a lich, because like you're doing it for a good thing. He's got some good spells. He wasn't like a horrible wizard in life. Kind of a cold focus thing going on. Protection is kind of like an Abjurer sort of thing. That's why he's got so many good protection spells. Get your AC up there. And congratulations, you put we'll just say those three. You can work those three into a prophecy. As to what the chosen ones will do, sort of thing. And in which case, your wizard needs to find the proper spell book. We'll say the ranger needs to find the black arrows. In that case, because one arrow, in D&D is not going to take down a dragon.
Oh, you know what else?
So it could be like a murder of ravens to find.
They also do like a hero will rise in the west, or they'll say what direction the hero comes from.
He shall rise with the sun, sort of thing. In which case, it might be that the dragon is over on the eastern part of the map and is causing so much terror that someone that has grown up under the dragon's oppressive rule just will not have the courage to try and stand up against them. They will be, by the time they're an adult, they have been whipped down hard enough that it will not even be a thought.
But do you think, will they join the hero as a sidekick?
Good comedic sidekicks always,
in his quest.
They might learn that way, and so that way the hero, has others rise to the cause. In which case, you could say the hero is a farmer, and that their crop rises with them as the sun comes up where they come from. So you get the solar hero concept. They come, in this case, wherever the sun is. Where the sun sets, the hero rises in the west.
Okay.
Sort of thing. The west is not under the dragon's rule, so that's where someone who would have the courage to say, I don't like what this dragon's doing, I'm going to go over there, I'm going to beat up the dragon until it's dead. Whereas that's not a thought that could enter into the oppressive, mindset of those underneath the dragon tyrant's rule. And so, but their courage, their nature will cause the peasants to rise. And so a hero connected with the sun, what rises with the sun? The wheat that grows. That shall be the harvest they yield, is rich grains.
All right.
And that's the courage of the peasantry as they do the smaller things to help stop like the dragon's kobold minions. In this case, stop the kobold caravans from taxing and all this sort of stuff and taking everyone's money to add to the dragon's hoard. So in that case, yes, the wheat shall defeat the lizard, the newt. In which case, the kobolds are newts. So you get some sort of like a newt defeating wheat in the prophecy.
Okay, yeah.
And really what it is just saying, like, no, listen, you want to defeat the dragon, you're going to have to make sure his minions aren't doing anything. So that means you got to get rid of the kobold, tax collectors.
Yeah.
Which only happens when you have enough courage to make the presence, instilled with your courage. They get an infusion of it.
So why is this prophecy writer, why is he doing the whole Nostradamus thing? Why is he like...
One, because, it's kind of cool to be a bit of a poet. It's just kind of who you are.
He's just an artistic
I got to be
guy.
me, whoever I am. And the other thing is you can't just say it's going to be Dave. Dave from the West.
Yeah, but you could say...
Because it doesn't necessarily need to be Dave. All it needs to be is someone who comes from these conditions, that cannot be met in other areas. Like it can't be someone under the dragon's rule because they will be, thoroughly crushed.
So if you say like a man will arise from the west and he will bring the wheat with him to destroy the newts, that could be interpreted as, well, maybe the newts are kobolds, or maybe they're bullywugs, or maybe they're
some sort of reptilian
gnolls,
little
goblins.
pest. Yeah.
So all of these. All of these items can be interchanged and replaced with something else. You could even have the same prophecy apply, 100 years in the future, and then, 500 more years, the same thing happened again. Or, the same prophecy applies, but now all the elements are different.
So in this case, like the soothsayer is seeing like multiple situations in the future and finding out what common things are needed for each one of them to create a multi-purpose prophecy.
I don't know if... I think maybe the soothsayer is just writing something vague enough that it can be applied to a whole bunch of different situations.
Well, the thing is, you can't just come out and say that sort of stuff because then it becomes too easy to crack down on. It's like, if you're going to do... the prophecy of, we'll call it Thomas the Very Clear and Concise. In order to defeat a red dragon, you are going to need red dragon armor. Consider defeating the lesser red dragons in the area, likely the progeny of the great red dragon. In which case, then the great red dragon says, I'm not having any kids. I'm killing anything that cracks out of a shell. Sorry, guys.
How does he become... someone gives him a copy of the...
Yeah, when the kobold says, hey, according, Thomas the Clear and Concise says, this is how you can be defeated. He's giving you, everyone exact instructions as to how to defeat you. So it's like, well, first of all, burn all copies of that book. Second of all, I'm going to make certain that those conditions don't arise, which I think is something all good tyrants should strive for.
I guess so, but...
Good in this case should be hand quotes. Any efficient and level-headed tyrant would make sure to not cause any conditions that would overthrow their rule.
Maybe, but also, like... It makes good sense. But I don't know about a dragon, but it makes good sense
because Dungeons and Dragons, dragon.
No, but for an evil, your evil overlord guy, it actually does make sense to have underlings and relatively powerful lieutenants, because you're going to need to control a whole populations and.
You don't want to go attacking and breathing fire on every village in your domain. You're a dragon. You want to sleep on a large pile of gold. So one, you need someone to get you that gold, and that gold can't be gotten just by breathing fire on people. That tends to prohibit, gold accumulation. It melts the darn stuff. And you're going to want to make certain you have time to sleep. Any efficient ruler is going to have underlings to help make certain they don't get overstressed with work.
Yeah. But I suppose at the same time you don't want them too ambitious or powerful, because then they might threaten your own power. And
that's why the dragon might go for something like kobolds, whereas they aren't perceived as powerful, and they worship the dragon as a god.
Yeah.
Whereas we could work at say the prophecy was written so far back in time. The guy writing it was not certain what would come up. Maybe the dragon's going to turn his underling, his progeny, from the little dragons into kobolds. Maybe that's how kobolds come out. Kobolds don't currently exist as he's writing it, so he writes them as how do I describe a small tiny wimp dragon? I will call them a newt, and that way, because newts exist, I get the point across.
Mm-hmm.
And so in which case it might be that maybe the dragon then just doesn't lay any eggs. Maybe the dragon decides not to mate at all, and then it's just I guess I'll hire goblins. And so in which case they're the newt sort of thing. The form of what the underlings are is vague.
Okay.
But it really doesn't matter what they are. You still have to squash their their money stealing ways to help curtail the dragon's power, to help encourage the peasant folk even more. and rise the wheat higher.
Okay, yeah, all right.
And so in which case, like, the prophecy isn't necessarily, you don't even need to see the future for to write such a prophecy. All you need to do is have a decent knowledge base and figure out what it would take to bring down this sort of beast. Or, tyrant or whatever it is, and like fulfill whatever it is, And that's why you don't even need to say it's going to be Dave from the West, buddy. So, like, kill everyone named Dave who's coming in from the West. Because it could be anybody, so long as they meet the criteria, they get, the murder of crows, sort of thing, all the black bolts, they get the spell book, they get the dragon armor, they stand the best chance of defeating this, evil red dragon overlord. It can be anybody, and it can happen multiple times until finally someone gets the thing right and the dragon dies.
Okay, so in that way, in that sense, a prophecy is more of like a recipe or a formula or
a rough outline, like the drawing that a person does before they draw like a full character. In which case, you don't start from the top hairs and you work yourself down to the shoes. You start with the rough outline. In which case, the prophecy just stays as the outline, and the characters are the people who flesh it in as to who they are. And if they get it right, congratulations, Dragon's dead, you're the hero, was always meant to be because you fulfilled the prophecy. Everybody comes out ahead except for the dead dragon, his minions, and the progeny of the dragon, which is now a bunch of armor. So does that make sense as a concept?
Well, sure, but I'm not sure about the connection between. Well, we're talking about like outlines and
well, that's the thing is it's all the same sort of thing, just under a different genre, sort of different medium. It's like who's going to make the next Attack of the Killer Tomatoes crazy low budget comedy? Well, you're going to have to meet these criteria on it, sort of thing. And although the technological barrier's low. Apparently there's so much stuff out there, you have to have a larger voice. You have to have some way to hit the nerve so that people can see the darn thing. So, I mean, you could maybe make it, but if you don't have it on decent, like wide release, for everyone to watch it who wants to, it's not going to be out there.
Okay, so yeah, I guess part of the formula for, like, success in the movies, for example, would be, like, having a good, marketing campaign, or having just the conditions be right for the weekend you release it, or whatever.
I can think that one of the things that made Snakes on a Plane such a good one was that it caught on with, like, people doing stuff on the internet. Jeffrey Rowland's webcomic Overcompensating took a decent bit with that, and he's one of the reasons that it got so much people hearing about it and so much hype before the movie was ever out.
Yeah,
and they actually re-edited some of the stuff, and they brought everyone back in to put in a few lines that everyone thought was going to be in there. I am sick and tired of these snakes on this plane was not supposed to be in the movie. But it's like, it's Samuel L. Jackson doing it. And of course he's going to say something like that. And so he puts it in for a comic, saying this sort of stuff. It's like, dude, we don't have that line. People are making jokes about that line. We should probably put that line in so that they have what that's expecting. In which case, they altered stuff to make sure it meets the demands at the last moment. It's like, okay, Samuel L. Jackson, get back in here. We're going to get you up in the costume. We got to get you this one line, and then we're just going to edit it in. It'll be smooth. No one will know it was never supposed to be in there in the first place.
Yeah. Well, okay. So how I think Snakes on the Plane worked was that
ridiculous premise, great cast,
delivery. Everybody was saying, "Oh, that's it's the stupidest name for a movie I ever heard of."
It is accurate, though. You got to give it that.
Well, yeah, and I think we have a few like that. I mean, they did Sharknado, like sort of. It's so over the top, so ridiculous that it's funny. And
in which case that works against like it just didn't fit with the physics of reality. It's like no, it's a movie called Sharknado, or Sharknado, depending where you are and depending how you want to pronounce your A in there. But that's okay because it's like a movie so ridiculously named you can't have the high expectations of this is going to meet all the criteria of a physical real world phenomenon. No, it's Sharknado. It's a tornado full of sharks. Like, dude, don't think too heavily as to like how they got in there, what's going on, or why the sharks aren't dead. 5 minutes into the film.
Yeah, and I think the name or the premise of the movie is just so ridiculous that people are like, well, I just have to see it.
Apparently not as many people saw it as would be believed, but it did get so much, like, hey, look at the name of this ridiculous movie, and look at that image. It's actually a tornado full of sharks. It at least got that out there. People knew that it's going to be on the Sci-Fi Network. They're doing it again next month. So people were learning where they could watch it, as opposed to, like, look at this, image. Isn't that funny? Okay, now forget it. We're going on to the next thing. Mm-hmm. So it was able to catch their attention, and that's clearly one of the things that you need if you're going to do the next Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, or like whatever movie low budget style you're going to be working with. Mm-hmm. It is, that's not, I could write a prophecy on what's going to happen for the next big, low budget big success movie. I don't need to know what genre it is. I don't actually need to know the future. All I need to do is figure out what criteria has to be met for it to hit that nerve.
Okay, well, I mean, yeah, if you can figure that out, go move to Hollywood and make $1 million.
Well, that's the thing, though, is like anybody can do this. It's the same thing as, like, pop music. People say it's like, well, that's pretty formulaic stuff they're putting out there. It's like, yeah, but it still works. Mm-hmm. In which case, there is no one prophesized great pop song of the summer and all that.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I don't know why you're talking about a formula when you can have something like the Blair Witch Project that's very, very different. Like, it doesn't conform. I mean, yes, it still has the narrative, dramatic structure of a film, but it's got its own feel to it. It's got its own. And
that's one
vibe.
of the reasons why I think it's lasting better than some of the other flash in the pan sort of things that, I remember that. That was kind of a weird little thing that everyone saw and then kind of forgot about.
Yeah, and well, I think it might have been the first of a small, none of the follow-ups
micro budget sort of thing. Yeah,
successful, but
the Book of Shadows was okay as a movie on its own. I would not qualify it as great as a sequel, simply because the style was so different. Mm-hmm. You kind of have expectations after the first movie. It's kind of like a found footage style. But it did spawn stuff like Cloverfield and all those other sorts of found footage sort of movies where that all works in a similar design stance.
Yeah, yeah.
So in which case, yeah, like, instead of, you could, in, like, the movie stuff, you call it a formula. In the pop music, yeah, it is clearly, a pop music formula as to how to rate a song that'll get good airplay. Once you pay the DJs enough money to put it in proper, so you have to pay somebody to put it in proper rotation, so get it in the ear of the people listening, and then they'll start requesting, and then it picks itself up with a positive feedback loop.
Well, I like with music, one of the things you need is or what helps is like having a unique hook, like, or an instrument or something, something that sounds a little bit different that people are like, that's
it doesn't necessarily need to be a new hook. It could be an old hook that people haven't been using in a while.
Sure.
One of the big things for, I believe, Uptown Funk that's getting a lot of people in there is because it has a classic, like, 70s funk sound to it.
Yeah.
In which case, I mean, like, if you really want to hear some good funk stuff, I mean, go listen to Earth, Wind & Fire. They are really bringing the stuff there. They're still out there, too. You can catch them in concert. Have fun with that.
Sure.
But if they're not playing, Earth, Wind & Fire on the radio station because it's not, like one of the top 40 hits right now, it's not, like something that's come out within the last 12 months, well, Bruno Mars is singing Uptown Funk. They're Uptown Funk going to bring it to you. And so that works, in which case it's an old hook used again. It just hasn't been done in a while.
Yeah, and so I think that's sort of what you do if you want to, I don't know, catch cultural waves.
I guess cultural fish in this case if we're using hooks. Culture fish.
Well, if you catch one fish, you've got a fish. If you catch a wave, you're sort of riding along for a while. I was thinking of surfing, kind of.
Yeah, but it doesn't work really too well with hooks, because then you're like, how are you fishing when you're on a surfboard? This is crossing the metaphors back and forth.
Catch a wave. When you catch a wave, you are caught by the wave, I suppose.
You're hooked by the wave, then? Okay.
There's no hook involved.
Yeah, but we were talking about hooks earlier, so we have to switch gears to a new analogy on this one. Yeah.
Did I use hook? Okay, I might have.
We were using the term.
It's musical hook, right? Yeah, musical hook. Okay, anyway.
But I mean, it's an interesting thing to think about. Like, a formula is a prophecy just with a different genre around it. In which case, you don't have to think of the prophecy as, like, one person doing it. It has to be anybody. Why does all the pop music sound so gosh darn the same? Because they're all following through the same prophecy, in this case, of what will make a good music song play in the summer months. Good beat, positive attitude, funky little style to it.
But you probably, like, my feeling is you don't want to focus as much. Like, I like the new shiny. I like the new, like, I haven't heard that bit of music played, or I haven't heard that, like, instrument, or those, like, two notes together. I haven't heard that that
in that sort of
interval
beat, yeah.
together. So it's more like the formula. Yes, you need the formula underlying everything just to keep people from running like, oh, this isn't music, what? But so you need that formula underneath, but sort of on top you put whatever's new.
Your new spin on that.
Yeah, and you can change the formula a little bit too, but yeah, sort of. But you don't.
Or
in that
case, we could say, imperfect sort of a following of the formula is like a bit of like one of those term wabi-sabi, where like you have a little bit of imperfection in something otherwise perfect, and that's what makes it stand out.
Yeah. Or I've heard that it's sprezzatura.
Oh yeah, I guess depending on which sort of culture you want to borrow the word from. I was heading east. I was heading west. You were heading east. And you hit the
west
German.
from us, and
I suppose it's either way, depending how far you want to go around on that.
Yeah, all the way on the other side of the world.
But yeah, in which case that might be what causes the hook for you. It's like it was almost like a standard, like completely in one ear out the other sort of pop song that I otherwise ignore. But they did have that really interesting thing going on, like Nick Jonas singing "Jealous," how he's got that really high pitch. It's kind of got like a bit of a Bee Gees sort of thing to it. I haven't heard very much about this really high pitched singing voice going on. Otherwise it would have been very generic. But I kind of dig it for that bit they got going on there. It's the wabi-sabi, or whatever the proper term is. I do not know what the proper pronunciation is for it, and I haven't seen it in years.
Is it a Japanese term?
I believe it is a Japanese term. Might be horticultural for like when you're trying to do like your nice little bonsai garden.
Bonsai tree clipping, yeah.
Yeah, and it's a little asymmetrical this one way, and that's what makes it stand out that way, as opposed to just being like it's a piece of broccoli. I painted the bottom part of it brown, so now it looks like a tree.
Well, I feel like we just made that really boring. That idea is very, I don't know, when you actually feel it in motion, it feels very invigorating. But I feel like we might have dissected a little bit. But that's
well, here's the thing, though. I mean, you can have some interesting thing. And like, what if you're trying to follow the prophecy in D&D, but all of a sudden you can't fit that last part in because it's like a You have to hit.
As a player character, you mean?
Yeah, as a player character.
You're a player character.
As the characters can't hit that final note sort of thing in the prophecy because to go to you'd have to go to like the first temple, but oh no, that first temple sunk beneath the waves and then got blown up at the bottom of the ocean. It is no longer existing in any form.
Okay.
In which case you got to hit like 5 out of 6 and try for your best.
All right, yeah, so you don't quite fill out the recipe.
If I'm not mistaken...
You have to substitute some butter for oil or oil for butter.
Exactly. It's just kind of like cooking, and make and do. But if I recall correctly, the old Poltergeist TV series, they had to, fulfill a bunch of the stuff to, to finish everything up. If I'm recalling it right, but they never did get all the prophecy stuff hit. But the fact that they tried still counts, and so they went in with all they had, even though it wasn't everything. Mm-hmm. And that's a very brave thing to do. It's like you've hit all but one criteria of the prophecy. You are almost the chosen one. All you have to do is do this last thing. It's like, I'm kind of bored. I'm going to fight the dragon now. I'm doing it. We might not survive, but I'm trying it. I think we can do it I think we got good odds. 50-50 mortality rate. I think we can do this.
Now, wouldn't sort of depends on the GM or the scenario writer, possibly, but the person running the scenario, the god of the campaign world or whatever, your GM, your DM, they can make a decision at some point, or maybe it's just that the characters gather up enough stuff that they just happen to have enough. They fit sort of sideways through the door and they make it. But the DM can also be like, well, no, you needed that final crucial piece of the puzzle and you fail. I mean, the dragon burns you all up and he rules for another 1,000 years, and maybe another set of heroes will rise in 1,000 years, but
maybe they'll complete the Darren legacy.
But yeah, this quest is over. I mean, well, D&D can end that way. Because
even
D&D
the thing is
flexible that way.
With the rolls on D&D and this natural chaotic fight.
I think
standard.
Movies might be less inclined to end in a way like that.
But yeah, I mean, as the saying goes, is no matter how good you are, no matter how hard you try, sometimes the dragon wins. So even if you meet all the criteria of the prophecy, if you're rolling all ones and he's rolling 18 through 20, you are not going to survive very long.
Yeah.
In which case, I guess you weren't the chosen one. In which case, the person who wrote the prophecies covering their tuchus Whereas, it's like, oh no, I threw that in as, that the other bit that you didn't get is a red herring. You'll notice that, because it couldn't be done, it shouldn't be done. And that was to make, only the chosen one would really know that because they can't, they shouldn't, and thus they go on.
Yeah, I like it. That's another, I don't know if we have time to get into this.
We'll go just a little over.
Little,
just a wee bit.
Another issue is there has to be some level of, wisdom. I don't know if it's in the characters or just the players of the characters, because they're also sort of storytellers in a way. They're a bit omniscient in some ways. But the characters have to have this bit of wisdom to be able to know, or maybe they're just taking a risk, I don't know. But is there a way for a character to actually figure out which elements are absolutely necessary and which are not?
Well, there's always the high challenge rating intelligence check.
I guess, you can roll you roll your dice on intelligence,
otherwise, it could be, heck, if you want to play it up very well, you could have the false, quatrain written in a slightly different style, like it doesn't utilize the letter E at all, and so somebody notices whichever prophecy bits don't contain the letter E in there at all. They're the false ones that are purposely there's a wink wink. If you notice the subtle hint.
Yeah, well, I wasn't. That's another thing, but I wasn't thinking that the DM would know ahead of time which parts of the prophecy the players would not be able to accomplish. Like I'm assuming the DM would lay it all out, that theoretically they can achieve each goal, like the arrow, the other dragon, this cave being from the west, and blah blah blah, all these criteria, but they might miss one, like they don't have a certain medallion that's.
They are not a good character. They're all neutral. They don't actually inspire any hope. They do not raise the grain that strikes down the newt.
So the DM lays all those sort of things out for the players to attempt, and the players fail at one. And then so after the fact, the DM can sort of insert that, that prophecy was false.
Well, along your travels, if you were to find like a Dead Sea Scrolls sort of copy of the previous one, hey, why is that one we failed not even listed on here? Was that added after the date? In which case you can add a little history to say, oh no, it was never supposed to be in there. Someone else added it in. Who's trying to modify the prophecy and for what ends? In which case, the fact that they failed, you can start looking in that and make that a threat of its own. Like, who's trying to manipulate this part? Is that the dragon trying to actually, undermine the players? And that if they had succeeded at this part of the prophecy, something else would have gone wrong and they couldn't have done it? In which case, they should have failed. So, provided it's not like a big marathon session, the DM can sit down and do some notes, think some stuff up, and make it work out. And suddenly we've got an interesting new twist on the prophecy in this case.
Okay, I like that you took it that way, because, if you just left it that, it turns out that was wrong, that feels a little cheap. Like, it feels like the players might feel like, you just gave it to us because
you're being manipulated by different sides of an age-old, a feud.
You made it into a more, intricate story. And I like that, too, because we've been talking all this time about, we have this quest, and we're going to end at killing the dragon, but you've just extended the quest beyond that, and how can the dragon strike back from beyond the grave? And that can be the sequel.
The dragon made the counter-prophecy.
Yeah, and that often happens with the sequel. It's like, we found out, yes, we killed the big bad guy in the first one. He's definitely dead. But we discovered that he had laid, all these other traps. I think, did they do that in Saw? I think the guy was dead, but they had...
Well, he was alive in the next couple of movies, so apparently, not completely. But you could work it like this. The dragon is no dummy either. I mean, great old worms tend to not be stupid. And so the dragon could, on the wall of his cave, scratching a draconic prophecy of his own. His fall leads to nothing but chaos and turmoil. Let's take a look at stuff in the real world, like Libya, where the government fails.
Yeah.
And then you get a bunch of different, people say, I should rule this area, I should rule this area, and then all of a sudden it's just, instead of one oppressive dictator on the whole land, it's a bunch of warring guerrilla factions fighting each other, and that's not better at all for the average person just trying to live a calm and decent, law-abiding life. In which case, the dragon can make a counter-prophecy, as if I get struck down, there shall be nothing but, strife and turmoil throughout the land, as, 100, petty tyrants rise up to try and take my void, or however he wants to, phrase it, all fun and weird. In which case, then, it's like, strike me down, and this is not the end of your fight.
So what is the dragon, the heroes show up in the dragon's lair, and the dragon's like, let me show you guys something. Like, come on, over here, right over here.
That'd be like right on the ceiling of this thing.
I'll just light up the area, just blow a bit of fire so that the ceiling lights up with all the
I have the
words
whole
written.
thing, like, inscribed with pitch. All I need to do is breathe flame, and the whole thing just
all the
glows
letters.
just glow for, like, a day. It's beautiful. Or it could just be like a final like flip of the middle finger to the players. It's like, you may have destroyed me, heroes, but you haven't freed the land because of the nature of reality.
The dragon's final breath, like his dying breath, is to breathe like
illuminates,
fire
the fire up on the ceiling and the burning prophecy of the fire lord, the fire tyrant's revenge.
And then to be continued.
In which case, it's like they wind up going their own ways, as per, like in between, like many, sort of like campaign stuff.
The land's going to be thrown into chaos? Well, we got our gold, we'll go.
Well, the thing is you go from like Diablo 1 to Diablo 2, what happened to like the 3 heroes done in there, and they go on other areas. They become NPCs in the next campaign, which is people from the east they are the grain that has risen.
Okay.
And they are the ones who will try and keep the tyrants from, being
or
tyrants,
like
petty,
Harry Potter's parents being like the heroes from the last age.
Yeah. And in which case, very much so, that they work as NPCs, and you will encounter them later on as they're doing this thing or that thing, or like, the wizard is like, it turns out there was a bit of a delayed, necromantic, resurrection on moving the tome out, so I have to use my magical energies to keep the undead horde contained in this location. I am not, able to leave this area. I need to keep doing the abjuration chants all the time. But turns out that Not Evil Wizard did have a pretty vicious streak about, desecrating his corpse. Whoops. So in which case, if you can, figure a way to stop that as the new PCs, congratulations. The old PC is opened up and he goes on to help out, doing other stuff, because it's not his story anymore. It's these guys' story.
Yeah.
So
or he could, depending on level disparity. I mean, if one of the PCs in the current group happened to die or leave or something like that, another player could be like, "Oh, hey, I want to play that old.
I want to play my old character back. Oh, okay, a bit of a legacy thing. You're a little bit more powered, so I'm going to give you a penalty on something else going on here, but we'll slip you on it."
Yeah.
And I will say this, one of the good advantages to being a petty despot or an evil leader in a D&D-based setting is the amount of killing causes you to go up levels pretty quickly. Those little petty tyrants that come up and rise to power after the dragon falls could hit some pretty interesting levels of their own right, by the time you confront them. So just because you've got a legacy character who defeated the dragon doesn't mean they're going to be able to take down the dozen, criminal lords that occupy the world now.
I like it because it's like a wrestling bracket match, sending two, pairing them off, like this guy versus this guy. The winner advances, and then they get a little bit more powerful as they advance from both sides of the bracket, kind of the sports thing, until the final match between as probably the heroes essentially.
Should be the heroes as an upstart sort of thing,
versus whichever warlord happened to have manipulated his way up to.
Or however, which way they manipulated the warlord, because maybe they said, okay, we'll do this here and we'll sabotage the really bad guy, so we get the one guy who has some potentially redeeming features. Maybe instead of defeating him, we can convert him. It's like, hey, there's no one else. You can just have your proper role, but you have to do it under these stipulations of us, or we will come for you. So you will have to be a non-tyrant. You will have to be a benevolent leader, or we will stomp you out. And the guy's like, well, I'm not that evil. I just had to be as tough as the guys around me to make sure me and my kinfolk didn't die. Yeah. But I suppose, in that way, you can manipulate things into such a situation that's like, no, you don't have to become kings of the land, so that you can go off and do adventures elsewhere now.
He's kind of like the Ned Stark of the world.
Or I suppose, as they termed it in the Star Trek universe, Khan being the best of the tyrants. Whereas, the various Earthlings are talking like, if I was to be under any one of the augments' control, I would have wanted to be him. And Spock's like, you guys are fucking nuts. Like, this is like, what are you talking about? Like, this is a horrible person. He's like, but he was the best of a bad lot. And sometimes that's what you got to hope for. Humanity's not exactly the tale of the best and brightest winning everything all the time. Sometimes you got to hope for the best of a bad group. But yeah, I think that's been an interesting way to talk about conceptualizing like either a formula or a prophecy. In that they're basically the same thing, just with a different perspective on them.
Okay, yeah. Very good. Okay.
The prophecy for the chosen one isn't that far off from your recipe for making the killer wieners and beans recipe.
Yeah, it's all a list of ingredients. Yeah. Well, if the listeners, if you're still listening to the podcast,
I hope you are,
and if you have further thoughts on to add about prophecies or lists of ingredients, or you have a favorite recipe for us, and maybe D&D related recipe that you want to send to us, you can post it on our Facebook page, facebook.com/thesimulationist. You can send it to us via Gmail at thesimulationist@gmail.com. You can use whatever email client you want, but our email is thesimulationist@gmail.com. And you can also comment on this very podcast on our YouTube page, youtube.com/thesimulationist. It's just the same file you're listening to now, except just in YouTube format with a static image. Although,
because that way, with the YouTube stuff, it's easier for people to get a hold of our products, such as our podcast. In which case, it's the same as like one of the basic recipes for getting the next low budget great film out there. It has to be able to be somewhere people can find it easily.
Exactly, and we're hoping, always hoping that for that to hit someone really cool who's got a lot of friends that they can share us with.
Even a couple of friends. I mean, we don't need to grow by leaps and bounds. We can crawl up.
In that case, just if you have enjoyed the podcast, consider.
If you got badly railroaded in a campaign and you said no, these guys know how to do a prophecy, send this link to your DM and say, hey, consider what these guys did. I think they had a really interesting way of going about it. You should listen to them.
Indeed. And I think I covered all the media's things that you can click on.
So I like what we've done. I think it's nice to have cleared the air as to how a prophecy is best utilized, especially in a format such as like a novel, or especially a gaming situation when things are a little bit more nebulous, like you don't even know how things are going to go. Write eloquently and flowery, and make sure it's just vague enough to have a little wiggle room.
Yeah, and I suppose I didn't talk too much about another this story circle, or the story, the hero's arc, the hero's journey, or whatever, where it's sort of starts off kind of positive and then goes to negative and then kind of comes back.
How can I ever defeat this unfathomable evil?
He gets to a super low and then he's got to come back from that, or he.
I do enjoy a good story whereby it seems like the heroes are so hopelessly outmatched. There's no way they will win, and yet they still pull success and victory out of the fiery jaws of defeat.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, I can't see how they would possibly get a win out of this, and then they do. And it was there the entire time. It's just, I didn't see the larger picture.
Yeah.
It's a great storytelling thing when that happens.
So you can, in fact, you could match sort of a prediction or a prophecy of some, or a poetic stanza of the prophetic nature, basically a story within a story, and they're telling, this, and this is going to happen, and they're sort of charting out a path for the hero, like that sort of positive to negative, and then back up to positive, giving him, a path to take, and then the story actually, the real story,
the story of the heroes,
actually follows that prophecy. So it's a doubling, or it's a repetition, and that, or it's a rhyme almost, and that's sort of, in some ways, that's very pleasing to the human mind, because we like to see patterns, and we like to see, that happened there in the prophecy, is like a story within a story, and then the actual story follows it, so it corresponds, and it becomes a pattern.
Most of the classic ancient stories were repeated several times over. The Norse sagas, as well as, I believe, the Babylonian stuff, repeated 2 to 3 times. It would help to keep people to memorize it, because, I can't read. You got to repeat this to make sure it sticks in my head.
Although I have to wonder if it's just the bard, or, the storyteller, the sage, or whatever, just, he's at the fireplace, it's late at night, he's telling the story, I
got one story to tell, and I got to do this for like an hour and a half. It's only a half-hour story. Each line gets repeated 3 times.
Well, I was thinking he would forget that he told it, and then be like, well, and then what happened next? Oh yeah, and he starts the same section again, because that's.
You will be tested on this later.
The other thing about storytelling, especially when you tell informal stories, just your friends and stuff,
It doesn't quite have that cohesive structure as when you're telling something that you've written down and got it formalized.
Eventually it does, because you wear it down, and you wear the edges off, and it becomes very familiar to you, and you just, sort of repeating by rote the same story you've told a million times.
The process of refining your lines.
Yeah, some of the details get changed a little bit, but also, it gets smoothed out. Details get dropped, other details get added in. Like the important stuff sort of sticks around, and sort of, you remember the vibrant details, and then you forget other details. And then you get so used to it, you're just telling, you just tell that story, just, blah, this happened, that happened, blah, blah, blah. You almost get hypnotic almost when you're telling it, because it's from memory. And then at that point you'd be like, oh, did I already say that part? Well, I can't remember, because I've done this so many times. It might have been yesterday, or I might have just told it now.
I give this line to everybody. Sorry if I'm repeating myself.
But that's how storytelling informal goes, and then that's where we get sort of those heroic epics, because a lot of them were oral traditions before they were written down.
In which case, if you can find a good English copy of it, read some of those, old stuff and really get a sense of how they go and how they flow. And that should also help you write a nice, prophecy of your own.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's see. Anything else?
No, I think we've covered it very well.
Yeah, we went a bit long today, but that's okay. I hope that our listeners don't mind, and thanks for listening this long, and we'll see you again, or you will hear us again.
You will hear from us again in 7 days.
7 days.
That is my prophecy.
And I've been Josh Treleaven.
I've been Ryan Kirkby.
Send me money.